What comes to mind when I use the term informed consent?
What if I told you that there's more to it? That there are benefits and resources from heaven that are available to help you in this life, and you've never heard about them? Are you curious? Well, join Gordon Merrill as he digs deeper into making heaven real in this life.
Welcome back to Making Heaven Real. Informed consent is a formal, ethical, and legal process where, in most cases, healthcare providers fully disclose risks, benefits, and alternatives to a patient, ensuring they voluntarily agree to treatment. Its primary function is to uphold patient autonomy, promote shared decision making, and protect both the patient and the provider. That definition is provided by the National Institutes of Health. The key points from this statement are full disclosure, voluntary agreement, and patient autonomy. Hold those thoughts in your mind as we move forward, and if you will, indulge me for this episode. I try not to do this much on Making Heaven Real, but this time I need to get personal. Quite frankly, heaven's telling me to get personal in this episode. Part of what I had to really work through since my wife passed was the frustration of finding out most of what I am sharing with you on Making Heaven Real was only found out by me after she passed. And I tried to deal with this devastating loss alone. Then to find out most of these key concepts, including heaven on earth, spirit teams, and heavenly equity, I had to discover them all on my own. And after spending my entire life in church. Why? Right after a devastating loss and such an invoking of heart-wrenching grief, I'm not only asking why she suddenly left, but now I'm asking why it took 65 years to find out the other side of the story. Now, yes, I know, we've talked about this before, and there's no coincidences, and everything's a part of our life's plan, and there's a plan for this, and this was part of the plan. But at the same time, it kind of makes me wonder if what showed up in my plan is not a part of a much bigger plan. And maybe it's kind of up to us to pinpoint and discuss this bigger plan and what may not be serving us currently. I hated that I spent most of my life in church and was never allowed to know the other side of the free will decision or have that made available to me. After spending that many years in churches, I should have been shown how to live, or was shown how to live under the restrictions and limitations they placed on God and heaven. That's one of the reasons we don't even talk about anything that limits God. Because those restrictions placed on God in heaven ended up comprising free will choices of others that were imposed on members of these denominations. Legal and medical decisions are made frequently based on the legal term or the legal concept of informed consent. If we have never been allowed to know the other side of the free will choice decision, then we have not been able to make any choices or decisions with informed consent. Because we don't know what we don't know because we've never been taught. Let me say that one more time. If we have never been allowed to know the other side of the free will choice decision, then we have not been able to make any choices or decisions with informed consent. Because we don't know what we don't know because we've never been taught. Given that this is all found in Scripture, I consider this unforgivable. What happened to declaring the whole counsel of God as found in Acts? Why have we led scores of people to live this life, quite frankly, the hard way? When we have found out that heaven is waiting to be our spirit team, our STC, our life coordinator. Yet this has all been hidden, presumably in order to maintain some form of structure, order, or control, as we discussed last week. Back in the Genesis episode, which is 2544, we asked the question, why do we not know what we don't know? And why have we never been taught? Quite frankly, why have I never been taught? I'm not sure we have an answer to that question yet, but some of that may be still dependent upon the religion or denomination that you reference, or that you are more familiar with, or were brought up in. But I think we may be looking at the tip of the iceberg here, where we are finding out that if we had been taught, if we had been given information about our abilities as spirits, as free will agents, and if we had been given information about how heaven supports each of its spirits on this heavenly journey, we may be finding out what spirit provides for us and what heavenly equity provides for our spirit has far greater impact for our spirit than those controls that are put in place by the decisions of others comprising their religion. Maybe we're not taught about free will because, as we talked about last week, every human knows better than control. Because the spirit side of each of us understands that they always have the free will option. If we've not been taught, if we've not been shown that, if we've not been given guidelines and principles on how that is all available to us, like we've been discussing here, then we may not know what to do with that innate free will option that we kind of know about back in the recesses of our spirit, but have not really been given all of the details we need to know how to bring it out, how to manage it. Better yet, how to have our spirit team help us manage it. You know, my personal journey into the depths of heavenly support, guidance, and provisioning and love was triggered primarily by two things. The first was the complete, unexpected, sudden, devastating loss of my precious wife. And The other was the feeling of total abandonment and sheer loneliness when I no longer could hear from or be in contact with or connect with friends, neighbors, co-workers, and yes, even churches. You know, I've been asked several times to get into more details about actually losing my wife, and that may be coming up in a future episode, but right now, heaven's pointing to other things. And I think it's really important to focus on what was brought up for this week, which primarily they've kind of been in my ear all week going, it's time to get personal. It's time to discuss exactly what happened and what brought you to this point. I think one of the things that's probably going to be coming up soon is I keep hearing from heaven about a topic called Grief Gateway. And I've heard some of the ideas that we're going to probably present in that episode when it comes up. But I'll tell you right now, if you Google it, you'll find out what Google tells you is not the same thing. You'll also find out that there are several spiritual terms and associate it with our spirits in heaven and heavenly equity that you'll never find the same definition on Google because, quite frankly, when your frame of reference is only this lifetime and thinking that that's all there is to you, it's kind of hard to view heavenly terms and descriptions in the proper perspective if you're looking at this in terms of just a single class instead of from the perspective of the full degree program. You know, last week we talked about things that are online, about people having reservations about religions, denominations. We've talked earlier about people who are spiritual but not religious for the same reason. But I think the part that was most interesting over the last 2 weeks was pointing to the control. And the control seems to be pointing to the fact that if a spirit understands all that heaven has available for that spirit, some of the control no longer serves them. I think that's the important part that we need to tuck back into the recesses of our minds and add that basically to our Grief Toolkit. Hopefully none of us have that severe grief and that devastating loss anytime soon again. But what we've learned from that grief and what we've learned from that loss and what we're learning now about heaven and the spirit team and the support for all of us is something that we can tuck away in our Grief Toolkit and pull that out when we need it, when we have a friend or coworker or neighbor who has to go through what we just did. One of our primary tenets here at Making Heaven Real is to do our part to ensure others experiencing devastating loss and dealing with massive grief have the information necessary for a full disclosure. Back to the informed consent. If they have the full disclosure and all the information they need, then that should be able to ensure that they can voluntarily make their own free will informed decision on their own. And that decision should fully support their spirit as an independent agent from heaven. For any spirit to be able to make a factual-based free will decision based on informed consent, the most critical piece of all of that is being informed. When we provide that knowledge that we have learned here, that allows us to make heaven real in their lives.
We hope you learned something new about God's love and His resources during our time together. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out. You can find our social media links and our contact info in the show notes. When you're commenting, please reference the episode number. Join us next time as we again search out the ways of making heaven real in this life with Gordon Merrill.